It happened 10 years ago, and I always wondered if it had really happened until I started recounting these near-death experiences and realized that what I was experiencing was real. God and heaven and my dead father made me a better person. Yet things didn't always work out that way. There was a time when I wondered when I thought about God's way of doing things. Until one day 10 years ago. It was like any other ordinary day. Living a boring life, the only redeeming factor was that I had a girlfriend, and from the moment I met her, I knew she was the one for me. Since I'm not religious, I don't believe in soul mates or anything like that, but deep down inside I knew she was the one. After work, I called her and told her that I was going home to change my clothes and leave for tonight's date. I wish I had known what was going to happen ahead of time. I had planned to drive to pick her up first, but it felt like God had other plans for me. When I got home, I changed my clothes. I walked out of my apartment and to my car where I called her and told her I was on my way and couldn't wait to see her. We continued talking on the phone, she told a joke, we laughed together, and suddenly, I appeared in a black void. I couldn't see or hear anything. There was nothing. I don't know how long I wandered around in the blackness. I started to panic and eventually, I gave up. I sat down and started crying, wondering how long I would be here and if I would ever see my girlfriend again. I waited and waited, and finally, with grief and panic, I cried out to God for help. The darkness suddenly disappeared and was replaced by light. A bright light filled with love drowned me out. Standing in front of me was my father, who had died many years ago. He chose to commit suicide when I was very young, and Dad and I were never very close. But standing in front of him, I could feel his love for me, and I still resented him for leaving us, plus I was surprised to see him here. Even though I am not religious, I know that if you kill yourself, you will be left in hell. I asked him how he got here, and he told me that every soul goes to heaven. But they must go through their own personal hell. What do you mean, personal hell? So I asked him if that was the darkness I was experiencing. He told me that it was not my personal hell. When I experience it, I will know what it is. I pressed him again. What do you mean? I asked him what happened in hell. His words frightened me. He said that every hurtful word I say to someone, every sinful thing I do, is magnified thousands of times. I told him that I didn't want to go through that. He told me that everyone must go through this process. Suddenly, the light and love disappeared and I was in my own hell. A hell of my own making. I wasn't a perfect person, I was a jerk in life, and when my father committed suicide, I became even worse. I blamed my father's death on my mother for the hurtful things I said to her. I went through what I did to my sisters, how I picked on them, how I beat them up, even as strangers on the internet, and I didn't realize how much those words hurt until they got into my soul. Then there was the curse I put on my father after he killed himself, how I swore I would never forgive him and that I wanted him to burn in hell forever. My soul felt like it had been thrown into the sun. But the worst part was that I experienced loneliness without faith, a world without anything. I don't know how long I was in hell, but when I came back into the light, I was crying uncontrollably. I had subjected people to so much hurt that I was completely broke. When I came out, my father was there and he immediately hugged me, as if to let me know that everything was going to be okay. I asked him where he was when I needed him, and why he left us. He looked at me with tears in his eyes and apologized as he explained the hurt he had been going through and didn't know how to get over it. Seeing my dad crying, I knew then it was time to forgive him. And after hearing his apology, my hatred for him disappeared and I finally whispered, "I forgive you," and my soul went to the most beautiful place I had ever seen. I saw the pearly gates, I saw the crystal castle surrounded by light in the distance. I stood there in amazement that heaven was really so beautiful. I felt so peaceful that I wanted to stay. I wondered if I would have a chance to stay after going through hell. I heard someone call my name from the left, and when I turned my head, I saw Jesus. He had blue-green eyes, curly brown hair, and a long brown beard. He was dressed in white, and the only thing I felt around him was joy, peace, and love. Jesus did not speak, but I could clearly hear him telling me that I could not stay. I had a mission to complete on earth. I asked him what his plans were. Jesus showed me everything that was planned for me. I saw myself going back to school and getting my master's degree. I saw myself getting married, and we had 2 beautiful girls. I even got their names, and when the images disappeared, I went back to Jesus and he told me again that I couldn't stay and that it was time to leave. He told me that he would see me again and that he loved me. When I woke up in the hospital, my girlfriend was holding my hand. When I asked her what happened, she told me that I had been in a coma for a week when a drunk driver crashed into my car. The impact crushed multiple of my ribs. The doctors weren't sure how I had survived. But I know what I went through. God was watching over me that day. He was able to repair my ribs. My girlfriend stayed with me during my recovery. My girlfriend and I did end up getting married, and we had our first girl not long after we got married, and last year we welcomed our second baby girl, and I thank God for allowing me to experience that joy every single day. I didn't believe in God at first, but He protected me and kept me alive. I know a lot of people will say this didn't happen, and, honestly, I don't care if anyone believes it. I know what I've been through.